I just realized I was playing music from both sources, so that must have been fucking awkward. Why? Like, why not? Yeah. Let me see what this looks like. This has an okay angle. I don't know why I just didn't put it here. Okay, hi. We're back with another Salt Mountain fucking stream or whatnot. We are going to look at a new digest that just came out. We were going to finish the one from last week. I'm kind of happy this new one came out because there's a surprise on this one. So I'm not even gonna fucking front with you, bro. I'm very confused by one name in this description being here. What the fuck is he doing there? What is he doing on this digest? And more so, he's in the middle. So Fornever must have done some based ass shit. That's all I'm gonna say, man. Fornever must have been on his shit if he's out here getting on AniTube digest. All right, I'm very curious. I don't know. We're gonna see. This thing already has 2 dislikes. Who the fuck is disliking Shaybs? Shaybs has haters? Is that how that fucking works? I can't believe Shaybs of all people has haters. Alright, let's just go ahead and get to this shit. I'm not gonna keep people waiting. I'll probably stream for maybe an hour. I don't know if I'll go much further than that. So we can start. I'll probably see what he's got to say about these first couple of ones. But then we're just gonna jump straight to the ForneverWorld one because, you know, I'm very curious about it.
To come out this week from the 14th of September to the 20th
Here's
of
the playlist
September.
of videos.
First for some videos that I thought were decent. Yeah,
ForneverWorld is F and RANT. Stop ruining anime for yourselves by being impatient. It's 14 minutes. That could be interesting.
Put out a video.
And the future of AniTube.
That could be from our interview. The interview that he gave me about talking about my stuff and my perspective as a content creator and the state of anime YouTube. So this is like kind of a rumination of generalized thoughts on that, and he did a really great job guiding the conversation, and I think we had some pretty good substantive conversation here, which is awesome. He'll let me know when that full thing drops, but at the very least there's this installment right here that's kind of like a taste of sorts. It's a Zoom call, so it's like, you know, on camera and stuff like that. And he does some kind of like light editing here and there and showcasing some certain stuff, which I thought was neat. And gives it a little bit more like some dramatic little bit of editing with like zooming in on some statements to give them some impact and kind of guiding you through on a visual level. Which
I don't know why Shaybs doesn't do that. Well, I understand.
I appreciate that. But yeah,
takes
I
a while
think
to
the actual conversation, the substantive stuff that we
could just use
got out of this was actually really interesting. It's not the full podcast, so I'll let you know when that drops, or maybe it's linked in the description of that video at some point when that comes out or whatever. But otherwise, I mean, just shouting that out, and I think that was really cool. So yeah, go checking that out. That was cool. This is a quick thing from Old Type, New Type. I'm surprised I actually just kind of put it on my watch later because it was just like, oh, what? I actually forgot. But like, so this is a assemble insert at the beginning, sound and music behind the scenes. It's a featurette for this OVA assemble insert. And it's not subbed, and he does this a lot on his channel, on their channel, where it's a lot of just like extras and special features and stuff, and they don't upload very often, but they just happened to do one this week, and I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know very much about an assemble insert, and then like the fact that it's not subbed, I don't get as much like information or substantial stuff from this, but I just think it's really great to see this uploaded on YouTube at all, and you kind of get a taste of that, you know what I mean? And it's also just kind of valuable information.
The studio roundtable with Kohei somebody. That seems like that could actually be a fairly interesting video. I'm actually kind of interested in that. Future of AniTube is probably going to be one of the ones we check out, because I'm curious about what the general opinions are. Shaman King 2021 kind of sucks. It's 47 minutes, and I'm just going to say, I talked about that show for what? It was one fucking episode in the spring. It was the pilot episode of that goddamn podcast. I talked about the first episode. I said that show feels as fucking outdated. It feels like it came out. Let me change this. It felt outdated as fuck. It felt like it was actually still stuck in 2004 or 5 or whatever the fuck it was. And a lot of its storytelling characteristics I didn't like, and people got mad at me for it. And it appears that the general consensus is that like it indeed is the 4 that I was saying that it probably would end up being. So unfortunately, that just is the case. It's another case of Tsudidamas being right and shit. My favorite anime ED, that could be an interesting one. Kirito is good. Why is that 3 hours? Alright, we gotta talk about this shit real quick. AniTube. Last week when we looked at the fucking digest videos, we looked at like 3, because out of all of the fucking videos we saw, most of them had an absolutely fucking absurd, like, what am I trying to say? Length. They were all dummy long. It was like, I guess 26 minutes isn't dummy long, but 30 minutes, 26 minutes, 40 minutes, 47 minutes. This is just getting ridiculous. 47 minutes, 3 hours, an hour. Well, this one's weird because it's not really even, I guess, I don't even know if that's an anime related thing, but whatever. Anyways, yeah. These are just really long videos. What happened to AniTube making... Now, I understand the occasional 20-minute video or like the pause and select 20-minute video or whatnot, but the fucking... You don't need 3 hours to defend Kirito, right? Like, Shaman King 2021, if you can't get your opinions out on Shaman King in like 47 minutes, I have questions, because I don't know how many opinions you need to get out on Shaman King in 47 minutes. But yeah, I mean, like, honestly, let's go into the ForneverWorld one. Let's start watching the ForneverWorld one. We'll come back, see what Shaybs' opinion on it was. I'm curious about that one. I'm just like, why is he here? Actually, let's get some backstory on the ForneverWorld one. Like a little bit, just a little.
I liked this little rant conversation with ForneverWorld. Effing rant. Stop ruining anime for yourself by being impatient. He doesn't necessarily quote use that phrasing in the video itself. What the video is about is the thing of like skipping anime content, and he's not talking about filler. He's talking about like, I'm going to skip part 1 of JoJo, because I hear it's not very good.
Oh.
Or this is actually a
Gotcha.
perspective that I'd never heard of before.
I've never heard this before.
A lot of people, specifically back in his day, and like it's cool that he can actually say that. Like, I think it's great that like, you know, ForneverWorld and these other guys, they're coming on like doing this for a long time. So it's nice that they can like really bring their kind of history and perspective, like not world weary, I guess, but like,
like
you can tell they've been here a while, and there's like, oh yeah, when I was there during the heyday of anime YouTube or whatever, and there was this discussion happening, and I actually never heard of it. The people would tell you to skip Skypiea, like the One Piece arc, Skypiea arc, and like that's fully canon and like kind of important, and you know, and ForneverWorld kind of explains it in different ways of why it's significant, but like for some reason people would tell people to skip it, and it's like, why? What? That's crazy. And you know, and just I don't know exactly. It didn't seem that he stemmed this from a direct example. Like if there was something that came up that week of like, oh, this tweet went viral or something like that, or
just talking about
this was starting to become more of a hot button issue, then I can see where this is coming from, and it seems like he's coming from a place of authority in that way. But this, it does seem kind of just out of the blue, personally. And maybe there was a particular example.
Maybe it is out of the fucking blue. Let's go watch the video. But that's basically all the context I needed to know. That's interesting. I can't think of... Honestly, I really can't think of damn near any series back in... And again, I've been watching anime since I was like 6-7 years old. But I didn't start engaging with community discussions till maybe 2008, 2009. And I didn't start doing YouTube specifically for anime shit until 2014. So, but I was around watching shit still. I do not remember discussions about people saying to skip certain portions of shows outside of shit that is Naruto or Bleach related. Like in Naruto or Bleach, they would tell you specific episodes to skip, and this would be something that I'd look at too. Like I would just skip entire fucking sections, right? But I would skip sections that again are filler oriented. So the last like 70 episodes of the original Naruto, right? And apparently references end up getting made to that, or there are most of that is not canon. Most of it is filler, and so you can just throw it out the fucking window. I know Bleach apparently is notorious for having filler arcs and things of the sort, and so you would skip those things, but you wouldn't typically just skip a whole fucking season or arc intentionally if it's canon. So I don't know. This seems like a very interesting topic, but I don't know how fucking practical it is of a topic for us to be talking about, because I don't know anybody that says to do this. The closest I think I've gotten is I thought about skipping everything in JoJo up to part 4 because I watched part 1 and I didn't like it, and I got like halfway through part 2 and I thought this is okay, but it's still not interesting for me enough, or it's not interesting enough for me to fucking sit through it until it gets however the fuck I want it to be in part 4. And I didn't even check out part 3. I stopped like halfway through part 2. So I thought about skipping, just going straight to part 4 in JoJo, and everybody was like, don't do that. And I was like, well, okay. Because apparently there are, those seasons don't necessarily build on each other, but there are references that are made, and there's some context that's needed for things to make sense, and so I can't just fucking skip from what I understand, so I won't. But I mean, that's the extent that I know of in regards to telling people to just skip entire sections of shows and shit. But we can listen to his argument, because I would assume that there's probably more to it than just that, but we'll see. I don't know. What if we're never getting an anime?
Okay, people, so I wanted to
never had an anime intro, but to be fair, at least his character in the intro actually kind of looks like him. I mean, obviously, it doesn't entirely look like him, but it's pretty fucking accurate. So I will give him those. Not in your face. Howdy.
Okay, people, so I wanted to
How do you
preface
do?
this rant with saying that at the end of the day, you watching,
We're
the
talking about
viewer, you're gonna...
videos in the AniTube Digest this week. If you're unfamiliar, AniTube Digest is a series that this guy does, Shaybs. He just goes down the list of like AniTube videos that were released in the week, talks about good, bad, whatever ones, and just kind of summarizes, gives his opinion on them. We're looking at the ForneverWorld one today, or at the moment, we're looking on the ForneverWorld video that apparently was on the topic of skipping arcs and pieces of story in anime that are canon, because people tell you to, essentially, or they tell you to get to the good part. And I've just never heard of this being necessarily an issue outside of like Naruto and Bleach, but even in those cases, it was like skipping filler shit. It wasn't skipping canon. And the closest I myself have gotten is skipping, thinking I should skip a portion or like 3 fucking arcs of JoJo or whatever. Right, it's like a meta review. Yep.
Do what you're gonna do anyway. You have free will, and ultimately I'm just here, a guy giving my opinion on things. I'm not here to try and control how you consume your media, how you consume your entertainment. All I'm doing is giving a kind of passionate rant to a certain degree. So I want to stress that I'm not here trying to control anybody's way of enjoying anime or manga. Now, with that being said, I do feel like this one is a long time coming as well. Long time,
I feel
many
like I should get
years.
a sure mic,
In particular,
literally
regarding
bought this.
fans that like to skip stuff in anime. Now, there's exceptions to when you can skip some stuff. Absolutely. I feel as though, for starters, filler, true to blue filler, not just like, you know, anime canon as it's been coined as of recent or whatever, but true to blue filler. For example, like my nephew, he was too young when we originally watched Naruto together, so now he actually took it that he was interested in it and he wanted to watch it, so he went back and watched all of Naruto.
Yeah,
and
like
I
the last 70
recommended him. I
episodes
was
of
like,
Naruto,
yo,
you can just
episode
skip
135 through 220
Yeah,
is filler.
they're all filler.
You
Like the
probably
last
don't
100
wanna
or
waste
whatever.
your time with
You can
it.
just
You probably want to
leave
jump
them.
straight to Shippuden, maybe watch 220 at the end to see Naruto and Jiraiya go off or whatever. But yeah, go skip that. I recommend that. Go skip it because it has no continuity. It has no bearing over the overall story. You could argue that maybe there was some, you know, character development or whatever, but
To be fair, those last like 100 episodes of Naruto have some fire ass fights and some really heat choreography and moments, but I only know that because I've seen clips of them. I myself never actually went to go watch those fucking things. That's a lot of fucking episodes of filler to sit through to find pieces and like gems of stuff. But yeah, you said that's dumb, but I don't know what that is referring to. I'm assuming you're referring to like either there being 100 filler episodes or the idea of like skipping filler or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I'm entirely okay with the idea of skipping filler, but I don't know if skipping canon shit doesn't make sense because you're just cutting out portions of the story. And at that point, when you skip something that's canon, you can't even give a critical review because you've not even seen enough to give a basis for a critical review, unless you're just going to drop the show and say you didn't like it. I guess you're not going to be able to give much of a critical basis that anybody is going to give credence to at that point, right? Because you just skip shit. You just ruin the integrity of the story. Oh, yeah. The filler shit is stupid. I don't know why there's 100 episodes of filler at the end. I think it's because Shippuden wasn't very far, or it hadn't started or whatnot, and Kishimoto was just trying to figure shit out. But it is what it is.
Seen time and time again, especially in Naruto Shippuden, that usually filler doesn't amount to anything, and in fact it gets ignored oftentimes, such as like one of the tailed beasts, Jinchuriki, I think it was Utakata, his whole filler arc was ignored, and they acted like Naruto never met him when he actually was introduced to meeting Naruto in the canonical stuff. So oftentimes, yeah, when it comes to filler, skip that shit. Hands down. Go ahead. Do you.
Okay, well,
just jump straight to the next stuff. There's usually filler guides out there as well. Like if you're watching Naruto, for example, put Naruto filler guide and skip. Likewise with One Piece, Bleach, etc., etc. So I'm not saying that there's there that they skip vital information that later on leaves them left confused, left to kind of throw out opinions that are very uninformed. And if they had simply stuck through the material, they would understand. Like, for starters, I'm gonna give you a perfect example. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. There is this running gag, and I'm gonna call it a gag because in actuality it's a serious thing, of people saying you should skip Part 1, the very beginning of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 1.
Okay. So this I have heard. Okay, I did not do it. I wish I fucking did, but I have heard this. I have heard this. Now, this is probably when we start to get into the interesting discussion. I want to hear, because I'm not knowledgeable enough about how much Part 1 is referenced in later portions of JoJo to have much of a good basis on whether or not, like, you should have to watch the first part or not. But I have heard this opinion a lot.
Jonathan and Dio, that is about in the anime 9 episodes, I want to say. You should skip that because it's the weakest part. And I ain't gonna lie, when people say that, I get infuriated. Not because, oh my god, it is a masterpiece, even though I really love Part 1 as well. I love all of JoJo's, but
I don't
in
like
particular,
Part
1. I love Part 1. But ultimately, it is the groundwork for the entirety of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, at the very least, the first 6 parts. You can connect every part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure to that first part, and if you don't have that groundwork, you're not going to understand why in Part 3 it is so epic to see Dio return. Mind you, there's a little bit of a plot hole of how he returned, but ultimately you're not going to understand why he's so freaking epic. You're not going to understand how every part connects to Part 1, whether it be the Pillar Men, whether it be the mask, whatever it may be. Dio Brando in particular, and his introduction is connected to everything in JoJo's Bizarre Adventures Part 1 through 6. And if you skip that first part, you're gonna be left saying, well, what's so epic about Dio, and why is he connected to this character, and why was he the mentor to this character? Like, you're gonna be there lost and saying certain things like Dio ain't that awesome, and not understanding that no, Dio is very awesome. The first episode alone, the first 2 episodes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I'd argue, are some really strong stuff. And I get it that probably midway through, when Jonathan goes on his adventure and it starts getting into that more freak of the week type thing, that maybe some people I guess fell out of the plot, so to speak, even though Part 3 did it, and I guess Part 3 was more refined. But ultimately, point being is that you're not going to understand why Dio Brando is so freaking awesome if you skip Part 1. You're not going to understand how everything is connected to Part 1. You're not going to understand how it's the catalyst. It's the freaking beginning of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. How can you skip that and jump straight?
So somebody can inform me on this, because I'm not knowledgeable enough about JoJo to probably make much of a very informed opinion. So I'm going to ask this question as like a devil's advocate, or somebody who's just confused, I guess. If Dio pops up in all of these parts, and all of these portions are referenced, or all of these portions of Part 1 are just referenced, right? Having watched Part 1, there's nothing there that is so confusing that you wouldn't be able to interpret at a later point in the story, right? Like, so if you're not watching this to give any sort of critical opinion, I guess, and you're just watching it to fucking watch it, is there really that fundamental of an understanding of JoJo if you don't watch Part 1? Like, so long as you see Dio kill the fucking dog or whatever, right? And you see what the fuck happens towards like the end of that first part, I would think that if the rest of the series is just reference to those particular moments, you would probably catch it in backstory anyways, right? Now, again, or not backstory, but in references, you probably would just be able to piece the story together, right? Now, again, I'm speaking from perspective of guy that is not knowledgeable about JoJo. I've just watched Part 1 and half of Part 2, and I got bored and I didn't want to fucking watch it anymore. So, like, but I am curious. So, basically, summarizing my question, if Part 1 is referenced so much, and it's the foundation of the series, if it's going to be constantly mentioned so much, and it's referred to so much, wouldn't you just be able to pick up on all of its information? Well, let me change that. The majority of its important information via just watching later parts? That's my question. And if that is the case, then I actually don't have a problem with people skipping, because you're gonna get filled in on the context anyways. Now, again, if you skip a fucking portion of a show that is not filler, you can't really give a critical opinion. Like, I skipped the filler arc in World Trigger because I watched the first 4 or 5 episodes and went, this ain't World Trigger, nigga, and I got the fuck up out of there. And I still defend the fuck out of World Trigger, and I still have a critical rating of World Trigger or whatever, but that shit was a filler arc, and I also started reading the manga, so yeah. Give me 1 second. I need to go check on this barbecue chicken that I'm boiling. I'm trying something new. I'm trying to get in a rice cooker. I'll be right back. Hold on. Mucho gusto. It's cooking pretty fucking well. Much better than I thought it would cook. It's juicier too.
Through to part 2 or 3, you're like, I don't understand. And I get it that there's some certain instances of where you had no choice back
you can always
then.
go
And
back.
what I mean by back then is because now everything is readily available to you. You go to Crunchyroll, you go to Funimation, Netflix, all of it is there. You can go watch from the very beginning. So now you have a little bit of a choice, which kind of makes it worse for the people that like, yeah, you have no excuses now, like I didn't have it available. However, there are some instances, even going to JoJo's as well, of yo, back then we didn't have an option. You know what I'm saying? Like back then we had the OVAs for part 3, and the part 3 manga was, I want to say, I don't know if it in its entirety, but it was released over here in the US, and that was about it. So you had no choice back then. Understandable. Likewise, to a certain degree, although you should have long time ago corrected this mistake. Likewise with Dragon Ball. A lot of people, they never even watched Dragon Ball, the OG Dragon Ball, and in fact, they refuse to. They say there's no Super Saiyan power-ups, there's none of that stuff. They jumped straight to Z. Unfortunately, back in the day, we had no choice because we were thrusted straight into Z because I want to say back in like early, mid-90s, they tried to put Dragon Ball on TV. It didn't work. And then when they put Z on TV, it blew up. And there's a lot of people out there right now in this day and age that actually believe that Dragon Ball starts off with Raditz and
Yeah, there are actually a shit ton of people that actually do think that it starts off with Raditz and all that shit. Now, I myself have not watched the entirety of the original Dragon Ball. I've seen portions of it. But, I mean, I completely agree with that. But again, this is another portion where it's like, you can watch Dragon Ball Z and presumably have damn near no backstory of Dragon Ball and still be able to interpret Dragon Ball Z fairly fucking well by the nature of it being a pretty true to honest shonen. Like, like I don't know too many people that started from Dragon Ball and watched up to Z, especially if you were watching back around the time I was watching, which was like 2009 or 10 or whatever the fuck. So, I mean, you might have had access to it, but since everybody talked about Z, and you hear about Z first, and Z's the one that's airing on Toonami, and Z's the one that's airing on 4Kids, and they're doing Kai versions of Z, and they're not even fucking advertising original Dragon Ball, you don't even think about original Dragon Ball back then, right? And nowadays, I don't even know if people would think about watching original Dragon Ball. I feel like everybody just says, go watch Z, because I think Dragon Ball carries weight, and it carries context, but I don't know if its context is so massively important that you couldn't, again, infer a lot of it via just watching Z. And I guess that's the biggest thing. That's probably the biggest counter argument you're going to have for Fornever's point, is that if there's so much reference to these things that you're skipping, then you could just hypothetically watch whatever stuff is referencing it, and if they reference it enough times, you're just going to implicitly understand what the fuck is going on. Honestly, someone might prematurely decide JoJo is shit, so they may never see part 2 or 3. Yeah, that's true. In my case, I walked into it kind of pretty much open-minded, and I was like, part 1 is really slow and it's cheesy, but I guess that's what JoJo is supposed to be. And part 2, I was like, well, this is fucking weird and kind of funny, but it's not so funny like everybody was making it seem. And I'm not entertained enough by the action and by all the hysterical stuff that's supposed to be going on to want to finish the show. But yeah, that is a good point. If you're willing to go through JoJo, and I know you'll like it, probably start at the beginning is best. Yeah. If you're dedicated to getting through something like that, just watch the whole thing. Like I walked in pretty open-minded, so I just went, I'm just gonna watch from the beginning, and hopefully we get to part 4, because I want to watch part 4. I didn't get that far.
Goku, not realizing that there's a whole 153 episodes of Goku as a kid and his coming of age. And the crazy shit about it is, and a lot of people hold this opinion as well, OG Dragon Ball, some of the best stuff of the entirety of the Dragon Ball franchise.
That I've heard. I've heard that Dragon Ball is actually better than Z, and it's the best portion of Dragon Ball's entire franchise. So maybe I'll at some point I'll go back and watch the original Dragon Ball, but it's gonna be a while. It'll be sometime after I graduate, because I'll have to feel as if I have no worth, no purpose, and absolutely nothing to fucking do with my life. To sit down and watch that many fucking episodes of Dragon Ball.
That Dragon Ball is better than Z, GT, Super, etc., etc. It is an amazing story of martial arts, lessons, comedy, a very nice blend, and I think that's also attributed to why people, when Battle of Gods came out, weren't really rocking with it, because Battle of Gods kind of combined that feeling you got of the epic battles and the climaxes and all that jazz that you got from Z, but also some of the stuff that OG Dragon Ball fans loved, the comedy, all of that vibe that you got from original Dragon Ball was kind of blended in, because original Dragon Ball was more, in my opinion, true to who Akira Toriyama, the author of Dragon Ball Z, etc., who he is as an artist, as a storyteller. He loves jokes, he loves comedy, he loves giving you a whole bunch of different vibes, not just action. So when Battle of Gods came through and you got all these jokes and all of this zaniness, people were like, where's my, you know what I'm saying, where's my Vegeta theme, where's the tears, where's the destruction and shit like that. People didn't understand that that was actually true to blue Dragon Ball, and again, that's because a lot of people skipped it. That one is an exception to a certain degree, because hey, you didn't know better. Understandable. A lot of us didn't. When we were little, we just knew, holy shit, the Saiyans are coming. What's going on here? Now you don't got an excuse, considering especially you got people like me telling you that Dragon Ball is arguably better than Z and GT, etc., etc. And again, that's just my opinion. Maybe you think totally different, and that's totally fine. But if you do think different, that means that you probably actually gave it a try, original Dragon Ball, or you watched it. And if that's the case, I'm fine with you, fam. My argument, my beef is not with you. My beef is the people that say, oh, Z is better, original Dragon Ball's trash, there's no Super Saiyan in it, there's no Super Saiyan Blue, there's no Super Saiyan God. Like, what? I thought you go to anime for some really awesome storytelling, which Dragon Ball houses. Like, what? Ooh, and another one. This one is a little bit of a different animal, because again, there was the excuse for JoJo's that back in the day, you know, part 3 was the only thing available. Now there's no excuse. You could go on Netflix right now and watch, I think, the first 4 parts alone.
If part 3 was only available when it first came out, that would have been great for me, because I probably would have gotten through part 3 from what the fuck I've heard and the portions of it that I've seen, but I couldn't get through part 1 and 2.
The entirety from episode 1 through 153, then 1 through 291, then GT, if you want to watch GT, which over the years I've come to appreciate GT more. I just want to throw that in there. And then of course Super, like, you can go and make up for those mistakes. However, there's one that from the very beginning, I would argue, has been a purposeful skipping and mistake regarding One Piece. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all probably right now.
This is the one that Shaybs brought up in the video, in the digest. I have no fucking context on One Piece. The most I've ever engaged with One Piece is it used to come in the mail in Shonen Jump. So Shonen Jump actually did used to get shipped in English, the entire fucking magazine monthly to America. And I'd had it for some years when I was younger. And so I remember I read the entirety pretty much of the Whitebeard arc with no fucking context and was like, oh, this is interesting. I'm reading it. That's a case, and to be fair, this would be a perfect case of just why you don't just randomly start series in the fucking middle of the series, because, you know, you have no clue what's going on, and you don't just skip around in the series. But back then, again, I was like 8, 9 years old, whatever the fuck, and I'm just like, look, books that are manga, like manga books, I'll read them. I'll read anything. Give me anything to do. I'm so bored at school. I swear to God. And I didn't have like consoles back then, so, you know, I'm just trying to find shit to do. So I just opened up a Shonen Jump manga and started reading Whitebeard arc of One Piece with no context. But yeah, again, aside from that, I have no context about One Piece. I cannot verify anything he's about to say, but I will hear the argument. So
know what ForneverWorld is about to mention, and you're right. I guarantee you're probably right, because no land was not a lawyer. What? Skypiea. That is one of the things since early on. I go back to like 2010 when I first started really hardcore getting into One Piece. A lot of people said, oh, you could skip Skypiea. See, I'm a completionist. I don't like skipping stuff unless it's like, oh, okay, this is filler. It's really just like god-awful filler. It has no bearing down the road. They're gonna act like this never happened. Then I'll throw in, okay, whatever. But Skypiea is a full-on canonical piece of the One Piece story. It's in the manga, and the arc in the anime, granted, it's a little bit long, but ultimately it's canonical, and there's epic stuff in there. There's Enel. There's a lot of really cool things, but especially there's important stuff that overall connects.
Skypiea is one of the few things about One Piece that like I was familiar with, not in regards to its story and things of the sort, but I'm familiar with the name because of back in like 2012, 2013, it was relatively talked about. I mean, I think it was 2012, 2013, maybe. I don't fucking know. Maybe it was a little later, but I think it was 2012, 2013 that I'd heard a lot of discussion around it, especially when you're first getting into the YouTube anime community was something that was fairly talked about at the time. But one other thing was, so it's one of those things. It's like Chimera Ant arc. Like, I have no fucking clue what the fuck the Chimera Ant arc of Hunter x Hunter is. But because everybody fucking talks about it, and it's referenced by name so fucking much, I don't even need to know what it's about to know, like, oh yeah, the Chimera Ant arc. That portion of Hunter x Hunter, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are some things you recognize by name because they're fucking notorious, regardless of if you've seen the show or not. So
to the entirety of One Piece with Nolan the Liar, the Bell, Rogers connection to going up to Skypiea, how many times we flashed back, or people that went to Skypiea and how important that was a part of their journey. Just in general, the overall connection to everything with like Joy Boy and shit like that. There's so much richness to Skypiea, and there's a lot of people walking around right now that are commenting and watching One Piece videos that skip that shit and acting like nothing ever happened, and then they're confused, and then they're saying, oh, that shit is boring, that shit is whack. You didn't even watch it. You took somebody's recommendation that was very misinformed themselves that told you, oh yeah, you could just skip Skypiea. You cannot skip Skypiea. In fact, if you skip Skypiea, go rectify that situation right now. Either go read it or go watch it, because you've done yourself a disservice, especially endgame One Piece story right now. Skypiea is very important. What are you doing? Why did you do that? Why did you purposefully skip out on stuff that is very important to the overall One Piece world? Now, granted, there is some stuff in Skypiea. You could take it or leave it or whatever, but ultimately, it's still very important, and I wouldn't be surprised if the main villain of that even returns someday because he's so popular. And also, his story was continued on in the cover page stories as well. So there's just so much to One Piece that, in general, like skipping canonical stuff, you can skip maybe some filler, which One Piece, thankfully, isn't really riddled with filler by any means. So, you know, you could throw the argument there again, pull up a filler guide, but Skypiea, you have really shot yourself in the foot, because now again you're going to be misinformed. You're going to be running around saying this, that, and the third, and it might have been explained, it might have been foreshadowed.
This is a particularly weird case though, because it's like even if you're skipping something, right, even if you're skipping something and then you have no canonical basis for what happens later on, that might not inherently necessarily be a problem until you start making critical fucking judgments. Like, once you start acting as if you're a critic and you have no canonical basis for what the hell is going on, your criticism means absolutely nothing, which is why I was saying earlier, right? If you start criticizing something that you've not watched, you know what's funny? I actually wonder if I still have this shit. I think a couple of days ago I found a fucking, I have a whole Brady folder. It's actually not that big. Let me see. NACL sweet retards and blah blah blah. Okay, so one thing that Brady used to do, right? So Brady was, in case you're unaware, so Facebook anime community, there's this guy named Brady, right? And when we used to call this shit a Brady, which is basically when you give some sort of critical opinion on a show that you've never fucking watched, right? Like, dude would just an example, like, dude would be like, yeah, Monster is like one of the greatest fucking anime of all time. Absolutely. Like, how can you doubt this this mangaka's work? And then you'd be like, oh yeah, have you watched it? Like, what was your favorite part? And he's like, I don't fucking know, I've never seen it. Like, what the fuck? What are you giving an opinion on then, nigga? Like, hey, this shit's a 9. Only read the Mal synopsis. Like, that makes no fucking sense. I don't know what compels somebody to do that shit, but that is the type of shit you cannot do, right? And you're saying, well, obviously, chat, right? But it's like, there are some niggas that will do that. I don't get it, but they will. I agree. Obviously, you cannot fucking do that. If you don't have any sort of canonical basis, or if you've not actually engaged with the thing in its entirety, then you can't really give a critical opinion. So, and by its entirety, I mean its honest entirety, i.e. excluding filler, speaking solely canon. If you've not engaged with all of it, you can't give a critical basis. You don't have enough context to. You simply don't know enough to give a valid opinion. So, yeah.
Way back when, and because you decided, I'm gonna skip this shit, lad, you're running around like a chicken with his head cut off. So my point in all of this jibber jabber is to say that, can you skip stuff in anime? Yes, certain circumstances, sure, with filler, things that are not, canonical to the story, that are gonna have no bearing, but ultimately,
Generally
you're
speaking,
skipping stuff, especially the beginning or important aspects, or just in general, anything that is canonical, you're probably doing yourself.
What caused him to start talking about this, though? Fornever News? Fornever has a podcast? Oh, wow. What the fuck is this about? Black Clover makes 15 years. History. Oh, what? Impulsive Outrage. I have no clue what the fuck that is in regards to. Demon Slayer recap outdoes every anime. Okay. Might shock you. Very sad cancellation. Attack on Titan. This is interesting. I don't know. Well, AniTubers drop shows and shit on it anyways. Right. Well, here's the thing, right? I do not have a problem with dropping a show and disliking the show. Because the difference with so let me say this. The problem that Fornever is approaching is, you cannot give a critical basis for shit that you've skipped. So, like, when you try to judge the series in its entirety, and you've not seen a portion of the series, you obviously cannot judge the portion of the series that you've not seen. But you are, right? And that's a problem, because you've never engaged with it. That's where the issue comes, right? I don't mind when people drop shit, because when people drop shows, their criticisms are criticisms of what they've seen. They're not criticisms of something that they've never engaged in, right? Especially if you drop something that's airing, right? Like, if you drop is Boku remake going this season or whatever, I don't know, I'm just choosing a random fucking show, or Aquatope or some shit like that, right? If you get like 3-4 episodes into it, and there's only 3-4 episodes out, and you go, fuck it, I'm not interested anymore, right? Like, and then you drop it and you go, yeah, here are my problems with the first 4 episodes. There's no problem with that, because you're only giving a critical review of the first 4 episodes that you've engaged in. if you were to then go, like, the show keeps going, it's 24 episodes, and you went, yeah, I didn't like Aquatope in its entirety, or you're like, Aquatope is a bad show in general, the entirety of Aquatope sucks. Like, once you start getting into these wide scope generalizations about the show, that's when the problem comes, right? And I mean, like, this has consistently been a problem when people try to attack me in, like, arguments regarding, like, Boku no Hero or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, but, like, these get fixed in season 4 and season 5, and it's so much better now. And I'm sitting here like, Nick, I stopped watching in season 3, bro. Like, I was done with that shit. I'm not watching any more Boku no Hero. So whenever I talk about Boku no Hero, I'm talking about the portion that I watched. I'm not saying current Boku no Hero fucking sucks. I don't know if current Boku no Hero fucking sucks. I don't know if it's my intuition is that it probably is not very good, but I mean, maybe it's like a 5. Maybe it's a fucking 8. I don't know. I'm not talking about that portion. The portion I watched was a fucking it ranged from anywhere from a 3 to a 4. So that's my point. And yeah, it's just that the portion that you're watching is implied. And once you start to make it explicit and you start to critically review portions that you've not seen before, then there becomes an issue. Yeah, but this is a pretty good video. I don't think there's much merit to watching all the way through on this particular one. He seems to have an outro I'm kind of curious about. I didn't know that. ForneverWorld's got an intro and an outro. Is that his daughter? I'm assuming that's his daughter. This is becoming a serious... What is it? We're not going to watch this, but this might be something that I watch later. This could be particularly interesting. I saw Tokyo Revengers on here and was like, Alright, next one on the digest we're going to hit is Future of AniTube. Give me a section. It's a section, my God. Give me a second. I'm going to go check on my food, and I'll be right back. And then we'll hit this, and we've actually damn near been live for an hour. How the fuck has that happened? It hasn't felt like it. That video we stayed on for a decently long time. Well, whatever. I mean, like, we've been on... We'll probably watch this one. I'll get off around 9:30, 9:45 or something like that. And that'll be it. And then I'll probably be back on, like, Friday or Saturday or something if I get bored. I don't know. I did not get to talk about Blade of the Immortal today. But I might talk about Blade of the Immortal. I don't know if I want to do that in its own video. Just, like, sit down in one of the academic buildings and just record some shit secretly at, like, 1 a.m. in the morning. And just hanker it out. Or do I just probably want to hop on stream and say something? I might just hop on stream and say some shit. Leave it as a video or something. I don't know. We'll see. But let me go check this food real quick. I'll be right back. My fucking...
I'm in the mood for love. 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 Because you're near me, I'm in the mood for love. I'm in the mood for love. I'm in the mood for love. for life. Simply because you're near me. But for tonight, forget it.
The more you know who you are and what you want, the less you let things upset you.
We back. Okay.
Don't know what I'm supposed to be.
Food's turning out well, and it seems like I might have cooked too much, quote unquote, but now I can just meal prep it. It's kind of good. We'll do barbecue snack wraps. Alright, next one. What's the future of AniTube? This is an interview that Shaybs is doing with somebody. Kero Riripaddo. I don't know. Oh, Kero Riripaddo. Like frog's really bad. Okay. Shaybs was on the money, talking about the reputation of AniTube. Okay, well, apparently this is on the money. Well, okay, we'll see. Let's see where this goes.
What about AniTube do you love? What sort of future do you see for it? Where do you see yourself within AniTube as a curator? And how much bigger could it possibly get? Anime is growing so much, but AniTube isn't growing at the same pace. I don't know where it's going, but maybe you have a better insight.
Unfortunately, I don't too much because a lot of that insight has to come from knowing YouTube as a platform, and I don't pretend to know much about YouTube and its goings on and the algorithm and what's popular and what is a hit. I think there's certain creators like Nuxtaku that are way more in tune and have practiced and have gotten other connections. Like I'm really proud. I really like to see how he's been doing, where he's grown into this more internet personality and he's able to collab with some much bigger creators and get us more in the space. The same with the Anime Man. He had this recent video about Japan quiz show, and it's got fucking everybody. It's like huge stars. Like it actually really packed.
That was a surprise. That was
just
huge surprise.
Really awesome, right?
And
but it's not anime. And Nux is the same way. He's if you remember his stuff, he was a lot like Anime Uproar or like some of these other channels, which were very much just like talking about anime in a very general way and just kind of databasing you about like what makes Zoro such a great character and and kind of going over a bunch of shonen characters. And he had this Flex series that like really propelled him, but now it was around that time where he was or a little bit afterwards, where he was realizing that anime is not getting the numbers, it's not getting the views, it's not a lucrative area in the way that a vlog might be or a cult of personality might be.
I just want to say that Shaybs, it fucking replicated the zoom in, zoom out, the slow zoom out perfectly in this fucking video, and he was taking a little joke at the editing on this video. It was perfect replication. Perfect.
You know, general videos, like they're just kind of memey and fun. It's just not the platform right now. I mean, I like what people are making. I like what I'm making, and I like what other people are making. And I'm hoping more so than my digest series, I'm hoping that my videos on my main channel are like what I really kind of hope pushing people and like inspiring people and educating people and stuff. And they just have a better relationship with anime as a whole. But like, if they see that and want to make something themselves, I think that's really awesome. That was kind of the big ending point of my Gurren Lagann video, which is all about inspiration and stuff like that. You know, it's tough. I think I think you were I really envy your optimism about Anime YouTube, with it being so early and this kind of like we're all talking with each other and stuff. It's sort of the truth. There are definitely certain communities that talk with each other. There's still some channels that are very much an island, but there's also a lot of channels that are dead or just like not uploading the same way they used to, that are a lot more formative, or the formative in the way some of us might be now or something, but we don't see ourselves as that. And in terms of us getting big, it's like, I don't know, like that would be nice, but it doesn't seem as viable. I don't know. There's something with like Giga's managed to find it where he's still able to talk about anime, but he also has this like trash talk thing, which is very much not really about anime. Like you know that they all like and know about anime, but they don't really talk about it very much. I think wisely, because they realize that like a lot of people get upset at them when they spread misinformation or kind of talk out their ass or whatever. And so they just talk about food, and no one can get upset at them for that. And it's nice conversation. It's honestly kind of smart. And I really like kind of the bigger stuff that they make and everything like that. Although they, you know, they're not as.
So I think like 4 minutes in, this is not what Shaybs' exact argument is, but this seems to be kind of the basis for his argument. It seems like the people that are successful in AniTube are making a swap to doing how should I say this? They're making a swap to advertising themselves as a character or a personality as opposed to advertising necessarily the content itself. That's probably true. I mean, especially when you look at the examples he listed, like the Anime Man, Giguk. I don't know who the guy was that he listed that was a VTuber. I've never seen that guy before in my life. I thought the skull thing on his head was Noggin, but it's not. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I think I would probably agree. But I think there's a larger issue. I think the larger issue he talked about briefly was there's too many. There's a portion of AniTube, and unfortunately, it's sort of devolving into this again to a different extent. So let me give a brief history. So I've been around AniTube, doing AniTube since 2014. I've been discussing anime since like 2009, right? So the AniTube around the time I started and was engaging with it early on, there were like 3 content types pretty much. There's the episodic reviewer thing that becomes really popular around 2014. It like peaks then in popularity. That's how I started off doing my stuff. There's the full series reviewer, and those guys are just story, characters, animation, art, like enjoyment, give a rating on a 5-star scale or a 10-point scale. And the fucking like douchebag chocolate type channels, but there were very few of those, right? He was pretty much like an anomaly. Those were pretty much the 3 types of videos you had. Once you get into 2015, 2016, you start getting into the evolution of like video essays, and that's when video essays as a whole start to pop on the entirety of YouTube, and not even just AniTube. It's just YouTube in general. It's just video essay, right? And at that point, it's not overloading, but you have people that are popping in doing video essays. You got like Pause and Select starts, I think, around like 2016. You have I don't know when replay value actually starts, but generally speaking, that's when people start making the switch. 2017, 2018, I wasn't necessarily around too much, but it's mainly like the evolution of like video essays. And now we have the point where most of AniTube like follows the video essay format. Episodic reviewers aren't even considered necessarily a portion of AniTube. They're kind of like out, like sectioned off or whatever. And then there's people that just do other stuff. I guess the one phase I did miss is 2014, so pretty much 2012 through 2014, early 2015. That's the podcasting era as well. That's the podcasting era of AniTube. So that is a very important piece to mention, because I think that might actually have some implications on where the future of AniTube is. So yeah, I mean, that's your basic history of AniTube in regards to what content is happening at what particular time. We are currently in the section of time where the majority of the content is video essays. People that are not making video essays typically aren't included in what we presumably denote as AniTube. And if we even denote them in AniTube, we denote them as like some lower class individual or some shit, on the basis that their content is not as intellectual as it seems like. And to be fair, I don't think that's entirely a bad thing. I think like we can critically give opinions on people's content and shit and whatnot, but that just pretty much is my perceived state of the community at this point. My problem with the community is that the video essays are too dry. And by dry, I mean, Shaybs put it perfectly. They are too databasey. Like all of the fucking video essays that come out nowadays are just so caught up in giving like analyses that are just straight up from the fucking show, or it's like some analysis, some like explanation of like symbolism, but it's like some literature explanation of symbolism, and there's I don't know, it feels much more academic, and that is okay, but it's like pseudo academic because there's not actually a ton of people doing research like Pause and Select. It's more like there's just people that are making videos about topics that are not necessarily surface level, mentioning some things that might be academic, having somewhat of an academic analysis, and then not going much further than that. And so to some degree it can come off as pseudo intellectual, but in other degrees it's more like there's just nothing to get out of the content a lot of the time if it's not something that's just like pure analysis. And a lot of the time when people go to watch these things for analysis, there's a decent portion of the audience that's not actually there for analysis. They're there for reinforcement. They're there for reinforcement of their own analysis. They want to see if people agree and whatnot. But I mean, like, again, there are those people that go out and they're not there for reinforcement, and they actually do genuinely want information. So that's not to say that the video essay format is useless. It's just to say video essays are, outside of the information they provide in regards to the anime, they don't offer much. And I think the problem with that is that you limit your videos in scope to only people that watch anime, which is something I'm getting away from, right? What the thing that I'm moving towards is not just making my videos about anime, right? And it's not necessarily that I'm just broadening my topic. It's that I don't know how much value is solely in making an analysis on something that's anime related, as opposed to making an analysis on something that's anime related, has some impact on my own life, and then I can give my anecdote and my experiences as reference, and for like the audience basically to empathize with me, right? Like if I can use my experiences not just with anime, but relate my experiences with the anime to my own life, then I can engage a viewer that may not necessarily be engaged with anime, right? Because then the anime serves as a lens for, in my case, it's introspection, right? But for the viewer, it can also serve as a lens for introspection, essentially, right? Because they can then go watch the anime, or they can just have a decent enough basis on what the fuck is going on, and then engage with me, the person. So I guess to some degree, we're getting back to what Shaybs is saying, right? Like at that point, you're not necessarily engaging entirely with the anime itself. You're not engaging with the music video or whatever the fuck I'm covering. You're engaging with the empathetic experience of engaging with me, pretty much. That's what you're getting out of the video, and you can use that experience for introspection or improving your own life or doing something else with your own life. But my point being, I'm getting far away from just trying to provide information about shows, because I don't think that is inherently useful for people. I think that has its place, but in regards to where AniTube is going, that's where AniTube is now. It's giving opinions and analyses of shit that is not necessarily useful outside of an anime context, and as a result, you have a large portion that is not... You have a large portion of non-AniTube that is not engaged, and a large portion of AniTube that is also not engaged because they're like, damn, if I've not seen the show, what's the point of me watching the analysis or whatnot, right? So yeah, I mean, that's generally my thought. I do want to hear what he says for the rest of this. Maybe I'll cut this into its own video. This could actually be a decent topic.
I think after the second year, I haven't been watching them as much, but that's okay. It's like they're doing their thing, and it's awesome. But yeah, it's like a lot of them aren't making anime content. They just aren't. And if they are, they have to make out something that's current, that's popular, that's like a perennial class. Like if you make a Berserk video, you'll get views. If you make see, I don't even know. I'm not like in tune. I was like, oh, that'll get views. I have no idea. I'm not very good at that. I have things that I think will get a lot of views, and I get very sorely disappointed when they don't. I'm not like in tune in the same way. There's some channels that are growing pretty well, like Hazel. She's been doing great, and she's been uploading pretty regularly, and all of her videos have been really good. And she's still talking kind of more in the obscure way, and she's digging into this stuff that no one's heard of, which is excellent. That's kind of the ideal content, in my opinion, even though it's not the ideal content for YouTube. If no one knows about this, like, how do you, what? Like, YouTube's like, what am I supposed to do with this? Which is understandable, because they have this, it's a huge saturated thing. It's not like the formative days of YouTube, nor is it like, also, I think anime YouTube just had way more respect a few years ago. And there's certain players that, you know, I could be very overly critical of, but like at the end of the day, I respect them for doing what they do. But you have, you know, you had formerly Digibro, but now Trixie and Beatrice the Golden Witch, who is still active. I'm not going to say that they're a dead channel.
What is Digi's name? I thought Digi was now YGG Studio. Trixie the Golden Witch? Yeah, we just gonna move on. I don't know about all that. I don't have an opinion on that.
Although you could always make an argument, it's like, oh, their views or whatever. You can criticize the direction of her channel all you want, but it was her as well as Mother's Basement that were really getting a lot of views for a bunch of stuff, and it didn't really matter what they uploaded. But now their stuff is really stagnated in the same way, and it doesn't get the same amount of traction because the algorithms changed. It changes all the time, and that's just what happens. Some people who are very savvy to the algorithm at one point aren't anymore, or they have to adapt or whatever. But I think with you know, some of the stuff that they made, I think made a very negative impression on people. And there's, at least on Twitter, it seems to me that there's this kind of consensus that anime YouTube sucks, and that there are a lot of these, you know, trying to misinform you, or they're bought, or whatever, and there's no changing that perception to me. That doesn't seem, there's no changing these people's minds. It feels like a group consensus. Reddit, you know, there's a whole thing where, like, you know, part of the reason anime YouTube was able to get the size that it did back then, not that I was fully there at the time, because I wasn't making videos or anything, but like, you could get a really popular video by posting it on r/anime on Reddit, anymore, and you'd get a lot of traction that way. I'm pretty sure that's how my Berserk video got so big, was because it was shared very widely on various Berserk Reddits that I never even knew about, and people would just share them there. But r/anime, around the time like 2016, 2017, they cut off anime YouTube videos altogether, pretty much. Like, you couldn't post your own videos, and there was just something about it where they just weren't welcome on that platform. And I think they realized that now, and like they kind of walked that back, but the damage is done. You really can't get a traction that way,
right?
And it's just this. It's just the YouTube's just not interested in what we have to make.
I don't know if it's just not YouTube that's not interested in what you have to make. I don't know if the people are necessarily interested in what you have to make. Because again, the problem is, so somebody made a comment, they tweeted towards Joe. Joe had said something, he had gone on like this long tweet rant. Joe, I'm talking to his pause and select. He went on this long tweet rant like maybe like a month or two ago, where he was like, YouTube basically is not fucking with my content, right? Like, I put this shit out, it's not getting sent to sub boxes, even when it is sent, like, it's not pushed by the fucking algorithm. I'm making shit that I think is legitimately great content, and to be fair, Pause and Select is the best AniTuber by a fucking mile. It's not even close, right? So, like, I don't have any problem with him making the statement necessarily, right? But one of the tweets that he got was like, I think it might have actually been from what is the name of the guy that Shaybs always shits on? And I made a video on exclamation point, right? Like, I don't like that. I never fucked with that guy's content, right? I think exclamation point, I think was making comment. Maybe it was an exclamation point. It might have been somebody else. I might be entirely wrong. If I'm throwing your name out and I shouldn't be, my bad. I'm sorry. But Yeah, it's, I think it might have been exclamation point, but if it's not, we'll just call this person, some YouTuber, reached out to him and was like, yeah, but if you're gonna make your video so fucking esoteric, or if you're gonna make them so long-winded and like they're gonna cover topics that are not very common, then you can't complain about the algorithm and whatever. And I was like, this is a weird comment to make, because calling Joe's videos esoteric nowadays makes no fucking sense, because I wouldn't say they're mainstream, but they're much easier to comprehend. They're much more sensible. He does a much better job at storyboarding them. He does a much better job at scripting now. He's cut down on like the lexicon that he uses. And I mean, like, generally speaking, his videos are just damn near like PBS productions, which has inspired me to step up my quality massively, right? But my point being that to some degree, what that guy said was right, though, right? The diagnosis about Joe's content necessarily is not correct, about the quality of Joe's content is not correct. However, the diagnosis that what he's talking about is not necessarily what the masses want is entirely fucking valid, right? Like if you're gonna make a fucking video on Kisho Tenketsu, right, you cannot expect that everybody's gonna know what the fuck Kisho Tenketsu is, even if they don't. And like, I mean, like in my case, I didn't know what it was, but even if you're trying to inform people about Kisho Tenketsu, right, you can't act as if people are actually going to care about Japanese 4-part structure. A lot of people are not going to give a shit, which is why, again, instead, this is just me posing a hypothetical, right? If instead it was me making the video on Kisho Tenketsu, right? And instead of just talking about the 4-act structure, I'm like, the 4-act structure, and like I throw in some message about like how my fucking long lost love story is also reminiscent of some 4-act structure. Like that is a reach and how to apply it, but that essentially accomplishes what I'm saying of people are willing to watch shit that they can empathize with, and you can make content and use that to your advantage, which is what I'm going to be doing. But if you're just making content that is only applicable to a certain portion of people that are like only in AniTube and are only looking for this particular type of content, intellectual academic content, then don't expect to grow so fucking much, right? And my point with all of that was, it's not YouTube that doesn't necessarily not want your content. It's not necessarily the algorithm, right? The algorithm functions in a way that it sends content that it believes that people want to watch. So if it's not sending your shit, it means it doesn't believe people want to watch you, right? Part of that can just be flaws of the algorithm, but I don't think that it's entirely flaws of the algorithm. I think that, largely speaking, the algorithm actually is reflective of the shit people want to watch. Why do you think, like, all these fucking pet videos are so, like, you can have all these animal videos that are so fucking interesting or whatever, even though, like, they don't necessarily have any sort of relation to, like, or like the, you know, animals themselves aren't necessarily interesting to all that many people. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, if you see a dog like chasing after an ice cream truck, you're like, oh wow, I want to watch a dog chase after an ice cream truck. I can imagine how happy I would be watching a dog chase after a fucking ice cream truck. What if my dog chased after an ice cream truck? Actually, mine just did. Like, you know, the ability to empathize is a really strong fucking tool, and AniTube does not use that shit. They just don't. And most creators in AniTube, I'm gonna be honest, like I'm not trying to shit on AniTube as a whole here, but most creators in AniTube aren't very funny, and their writing styles aren't very interesting, and everybody is just some really plain derivative of douchebag chocolate, right? Like, everybody just has the same fucking style. It's either like pause and select academic style, but you're not as good at it, you're not as intellectual, and your content's not as fucking interesting, and neither is your subject matter. Or you run into like people that are I guess like a what type of content, but his content is actually pretty decent. But people that make that vein of content that actually aren't good at making jokes or whatnot. Or I guess, let me change that. Who did we just watch the other day? It was fuck, the guy that made the sword art was the best show ever at one point video. I can't remember his name at the moment. That guy is like a great example of like that's good content. But most people in AniTube will make shitty versions of his content, essentially, I guess is my point. Like, it's not as empathetic, it's the anecdotes don't hit as hard, and the jokes aren't as funny as like how he fucking does it, or how like Douchebag would do it, or things of the sort. And so it's not that YouTube is not pushing your shit because they just hate AniTube or something. That's not built into the algorithm. They're not pushing your shit because they don't think people want to watch your shit. They don't think people want to watch my shit. They probably don't.
So, in terms of the growth and success of the platform, for those people who want to make it their job or something, I'm sorry, I don't see it unless you're doing something that's not really explicitly anime, or it's like anime adjacent. Like, there's still some people that find success with like reaction content or review content that are just a lot more baseline and stuff, but like that still pops, that still does decent for them, and that's fine. They can do that. But in terms of like doing different stuff or essay type content, I don't see it. And I don't want to put my stock in it, which is why I'm really grateful that isn't my job. And so I'm just like, I'm okay with digest pulling just 1,000 views every video. It's not very, it's big enough that like Trash Taste knows who I am, which is awesome. Like they shouted me out at the end of their YouTuber video, which is crazy, and I don't take that for granted. But
I'm gonna give a shout out to my boy Shaybs. Like, not gonna lie, not gonna lie. Sometimes I'm just looking forward to being on his digest in the good section. AniTube Digest, which is a series where Shaybs, this AniTuber, goes through basically like some of his favorite YouTube videos to do with like in the anime YouTube sphere,
and some of his least favorite,
and some of his least favorites as well. And this is like the one series I've pretty much think every anime YouTuber watches, even though even if they don't want to admit it.
I told him, I'm like,
hold on, what the fuck was the?
Pretty much think every anime YouTuber watches, even though
facts.
Even if they don't want to admit it.
I told him, I'm like, everyone watches it.
Because everyone doesn't want to admit it. Every AniTuber secretly wants to be on the good part. It's like, did I make it onto the good one this week?
I see the numbers, and
it was fucking crazy when I first made it onto his list. I didn't even know I made it onto his list, so I found his fucking content, Shaybs' channel, right? And I was like, damn, I hope I can make it onto one of these someday. And I go back, and I'm scrolling, and I am the final video on the very first AniTube Digest, and he's like, yeah, this is the video that made me want to like start doing it, or like make this fucking video or whatever. And I'm like, I feel like I have reached my fucking peak. I fucking made it. Get fucked. I am the ultimate AniTuber, nigga. I made it there, and then like I had to like bumfuck ask essentially to like about like the podcast thing that I was doing. It was all right. Like the podcast was not that bad, but I mean, like, I eventually I want to be on there for I'm making an Inoti Bakari video. I hope I end up getting on there for there, because that's going to be a video I put a bunch of time in for, and having his support would help, because like I'd like for that video to get out, because it's not necessarily just about Inoti Bakari, which is a music video. It's about like my struggles with nihilism and like meaninglessness and purposelessness and things of the sort. And so like it again, that's a piece of content that's like, it's, there is benefit in seeing the analysis of the media itself, but there's also benefit in empathizing with the person who's making it. So but yeah everybody watches Shaybs, dude.
It's like my mom's like, wow, 10,000, like 16,000, that's a lot of subscribers. I'm like, yeah, I guess in like the real world or something, or you could say that, but it's not the same. I don't know.
It's a very good interview. That's a very good interview. I fuck with that. I fuck with that a lot. I mean, like you pretty much know my direction. If now the question is, what's the prognosis of the solution? Like, what's the diagnosis, right? Like, so I feel like the diagnosis is exactly what I said in regards to making content that is more empathetic, right? Like, once AniTube starts to make content that's more empathetic, regardless of if people engage with the anime itself or not. If you can find a way to market it and then use anime as a medium that just happens to be like part of your video, as opposed to being like, let's talk about anime and director and animators and anime, then you'll be able to draw more people. But just simply simply sticking in your sphere ain't gonna help you grow. Like, I guess let's put it this way. You can't expect to grow outside of your sphere if you're only making content for your fucking sphere. Right? Like, the sphere is not going to expand unless people come into it. So in other words, you're relying on anime blowing solely off of anime itself. And AniTube blowing solely off of anime itself, instead of taking the initiative to make it blow by making content that is actually inventive. And by inventive, I mean content that's useful for the average non-anime viewer. That's what AniTube's got to figure out. I've already posed my solution. I'm going to follow my solution. I think my solution's going to work, but I don't know to what degree. But we'll see. I mean, my solution: make more empathetic content so that people can actually relate to it, relate to your content and shit. Because otherwise, they're not gonna get anything out of it. But that's all I got. I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream for tonight. It's been like an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. This one was actually a pretty good one. The ForneverWorld thing was pretty interesting. This future of AniTube video is definitely really nice. I look forward to watching this podcast when it fully comes out. We'll probably get some good topics out of it, maybe on a stream or something like that. I know a lot of people probably aren't going to see this because I streamed it on a Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. So I'll start doing these again on the weekends until I end up getting a decent enough fellowship or whatever the fuck I want to say that actually wants to watch them on weeknights or whatever. But I don't have classes tomorrow, so I just figured, and I'm already done with my work that's actually due that I have to turn in. I still gotta do reading, research, and things like that, but I didn't have a whole shit ton I needed to do tonight, so I just figured I'd do this. So, alright, but thanks for watching. If you guys did enjoy, please leave a like, comment. Shaybs' channel will be in the description. The 2 videos we watch will be... Well, I'll put the title in the description. I guess I'll put the link there as well to just like the playlist or whatever. And I'll see you guys later. Deuce.